Congratulations, you're in charge of the war, it sounds like, from your boss. I mean, this is a big issue for the banks, not just for banks, but especially for banks. How do you address that from your position?
First of all, I was watching that moment live with some colleagues, and we all sat in the room, and I actually thought that their perspective was accurate. There's no question the threat is huge. In fact, I think the thing that makes this difficult for boardrooms and for CEOs is this is a different risk than bankers normally face. It's a risk that is unpredictable and hard to model. It's a risk where the past is not any sense of prologue. And I think the key here is investment. The key here is great talent. Cyber defense is possible. China is much in the news today and has been with things like Huawei, for example, with 5G. As you look at cybersecurity from Bank of America's point of view, how do you take into account when you source things, whether it's software or it's hardware, do you have to take into account where it's coming from and what possible risks there might be? Absolutely. First of all, our customers and clients rely on us to be accountable for the end-to-end of what we deliver to them. So sourcing is just as important as what we produce internally. And so the governance, the risk management around third parties and fourth parties, understanding of where code is delivered, all of those things are incredibly important and have to be, and we believe at Bank of America are well managed.
So when you take a look at what's happening right now between the U.S. and China, does that change how you think about things? Does it change how you allocate capital, what your priorities are in any way?
Well, I think good risk management is always about understanding the potential worst case scenario. So current events in China don't actually impact what we're doing in the day-to-day. It does make us want to make sure that everything from strategy to execution line up to handle whatever the risk is today. And the difficult thing in cyber is the risk of today is interesting, the risk of tomorrow is what's most important.
Let's talk about fintech for a moment. Much talked about throughout your industry. Give us a sense of your strategy. I know, for example, Erica, I think, is part of that. But where are you in Erica? Where are you in moving into fintech? Where are you in comparison to some of your competition?
Well, I used to say 5 years ago that we banks should be fintech companies, and I've walked away from that statement. The reason is there are times when fintech firms can be better, faster, and cheaper to market than we are. And so our strategy at Bank of America really is two or three things. It is to buy from fintechs when they have done something very effective and is a capability we want to deliver. Sometimes we partner with fintechs where we share the economics, and there are times where if it's existential or super important to our clients and customers that we will compete like crazy. We're not the firm that you will see making big announcements about acquisitions or investments in fintech. That's not our core competency. We believe that the entrepreneurial spirit is better tapped by buying or co-developing.
What's it going to take for you to get behind blockchain?
Well, I, as you know, am looking for the use case that works in financial services. For me, it's a little bit like, full of sound and fury, yet to signify something. I think blockchain I'm not gloomy on it. I think it holds a lot of potential. And I believe that there are use cases that make sense today. We have yet to find them at scale in financial services. So we're experimenting heavily. We have more patents than any other financial institution in the blockchain space, but I've yet to find something that makes a difference for a client or a customer.
Talk about artificial intelligence. I mean, you've been a leader specifically in the responsible use of artificial intelligence. I think you were behind really the formation of a group to really focus on that. Tell us about what the responsible use of artificial intelligence looks like.
Well, for a company that can state its growth in 2 words, or state its strategy in 2 words, responsible growth, it shouldn't surprise anybody that one of the key elements of growth, the use of technology and data and artificial intelligence, we believe has to be deployed responsibly. And this is a multi-sector, multidisciplinary question. It's not enough for one bank or a series of banks. It takes technology firms, public policy, regulators, and buyers and sellers all to come together. So the purpose behind Harvard is to create a place where people with sometimes views in agreement and sometimes views in opposition to discuss the ways that we responsibly use this incredible, powerful tool.
So what does that wind up doing, say, to hiring, retooling the workforce? Like, what does that mean on a granular level?
Well, I think the word granular is important because we can say at the macro level, workforce transformation. When we use the word transformation to an individual worker, that means, great, you're transforming me out of a job. And to us, that's the antithesis of responsible AI. My belief is that jobs and the aggregate number of jobs won't change. Individual tasks will change. The idea behind AI is to take the things that can best be done at scale automatically and free up individuals to do what they do best, which is think, advise, judge, do the things that are really value added.
And how does that interface or even synapse really exist between the human and the algorithm? Because it's not just two operations entirely separate from one another. Humans have to interact with those algorithms somehow. How do you train people to know when to use AI and when not to use AI, how to use it responsibly?
I think it starts with a culture that says AI is a tool, it's not the answer. It is a series of data points or a series of outcomes that enable humans to be better in their judgment. The other thing we have to focus on is that AI and algorithms are created by humans. So done well, they should leverage the best of what human behavior and human judgment is. Done poorly, which is why responsible AI is so important, done poorly, we repeat the sins or the biases or the risks of the past.
So for those of us who may not be as familiar with AI as you really are in the real world, what does irresponsible use look like? Because it helps to understand what a responsible use is if I know what would an irresponsible look, what are you policing against?
Well, I can give you a simple example in hiring. Right. If the question asked is how do I hire better or how do I hire faster, leave better for a second. How do I hire faster? I will produce an algorithm that takes the quickest hiring I've done in the past and leverage it into the future, right? Leverage those candidates, those selection choices. That simply repeats the past at scale. If the question is how do I have a more diverse workforce, which I think we all want, the algorithm has to be produced differently. And I think what you've seen is when an algorithm simply repeats the past, it ignores changes in the market, it ignores ways we want to be different in the future. Responsible AI bends the curve of the past and leverages technology, honestly, to make the world a better place.